Welcome to Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel. Chris.
You're muted, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, not sure what happened there.
Hey,
anyway,
Brian Kelly called that first play.
There's our out. Anyway, through the skin. Welcome to SEC Power Rankings. We are Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel. We're going to be going over momentarily all 16 teams. We start from the bottom. Man, it was a busy week in the SEC. We had coach firings, or at least a firing, just one this week. Who knows how many next week? We had, good week for road teams. Only one home team won this weekend in the SEC. That was Vanderbilt. We'll get into the Commodores and everybody else in just a minute. But first, a reminder, we are brought to you by our friends at GameTime SIDEKICKS. When I needed my morning caffeine, where do I go? Went to my friends at GameTime SIDEKICKS for my tumbler. For that, they offer terrific stuff. Stainless steel drinkware, all SEC schools, 350 other universities, stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, shaker cups, SE16. Get you 20% off your entire order at GameTimeSidekicks.com. Jay Greeson, we'll start at the bottom here, and it's the same team that's been there for a while. That's the Kentucky Wildcats, who you got to see this weekend playing Auburn. Tennessee. I think you watched some of that game.
I did.
Look, I guess the bright spot, if you're Kentucky, is Cutter Boley is throwing the ball through the air. Offense in a passing game is something that's been much needed at Kentucky in a while. But the defense has kind of gone sour. Maybe that's just a thing that happens when you're playing Tennessee. And big turnover killed you too.
I don't know what to say other than happy basketball season, Kentucky fans. You're going to be legit in hoops. Mark Pope knows what he's doing, and I didn't mean to turn this into a basketball soliloquy.
But that's where we are.
It is where we are, and look, the only thing they can do is play spoiler or try to come up with a game to give Stoops his flowers because he's going to leave as the winningest coach in the history of the program. And I firmly believe that domino is going to fall before we get to Thanksgiving. I really do. Whether it's a mutual announcement, whether it is, who knows? And I'll tell you this, if I'm looking around, and I know we'll get to some of these opening jobs later, some of the young up-and-comers will have their own staffs, but they're a collection of dudes that if you're trying to put together a staff and you go get Bobby P as your OC and Mark Stoops as your DC and Sam Pittman as your O-line coach, I mean, one, they're not going to need the money. But you want to talk about knowing this league and being able to recruit, holy goodness.
Yeah, fair point there. Kentucky's now giving up over 30 points a game. I'm guessing a Mark Stoops defense hasn't done that in probably a decade or more. But anyway, that's kind of a sign of the times in Kentucky as the Cats just can't seem to get out of the 16 spot. We had some debate recent weeks at the 15 spot. Arkansas lands here this week. I was higher on Arkansas last week. Thought that offense, Arkansas' strength would win out over Auburn's strength, which was its defense. But instead, Arkansas's weakness is making mistakes, and boy, do those pop up in a big way. I think this probably – I don't think it was happening anyway, but I think this ought to end all talk of Bobby Petrino taking the job full-time.
I think there is a real conversation, because I know we'll get to them shortly, but the team that won the football game may have lost the war, and the inverse is true, because Auburn's now trying to figure out what to do in the coaching situation, and Arkansas is going to consider itself lucky that Bobby Petrino 2.0 is not going to happen. And giving that game away, because they played A&M tough as nails. No offense to Sam or Tennessee fans, the way the game unfolded in Knoxville, Arkansas was right there to win that game too. And this one, they just gift wrap for Auburn. I mean, the pick was predictable. I mean, the Auburn cornerback Pleasant talked about how they had scouted this play multiple times and had his reads. Hey, OBKWE says Auburn has the best defense in the SEC. Statistically, they don't. With your eyes, they're as good as anybody. They're not going to apologize to a soul. And because they flummoxed Taylor Green to a place that I have not seen him this year, Chris, because he's been the reason that they were competitive the last two. And, shoo.
Yeah, I think that best defense argument probably is a Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Auburn conversation. I may be leaving somebody out. I probably prefer a team, not Auburn, in that. We'll get to that in a minute. But theirs is really good. And, hey, look, I've maintained for a while, with all of Auburn's weaknesses, they were kind of due to get one of those. And they got one on Saturday. So hats off to Hugh Freeze and the Tigers there. We'll get to them in just a minute. 14 South Carolina. I guess we should have figured a better effort was in there somewhere for the Gamecocks. But, man, holy cow, what a heartbreak when you've got your student body ready to rush the field, and then you give up 2 touchdowns with a turnover in between in the last, 2:30 to lose it.
Well, the storyline, and you and I went live last night. I hope everybody enjoyed that, about Brian Kelly getting fired. Sam Pittman and Brian Kelly, they got fired the day after their team's up and quit. South Carolina's had a disappointing season. You in a million years can't say Shane Beamer's boys quit. They played as hard as they have all year and were in it. Oh, man, that fumble was painful, and it's a guy who's your best player. I mean, it's not like you can question the play call or the decision makings. You had your best player with a football in his hands, and the Alabama kid made a great play. And look, I know they're much higher up the numerical nomenclature right now, but I can remember saying last week that I'm most impressed the different ways that Texas A&M can beat you. South Carolina did everything perfectly to take away Alabama's biggest advantage to this point, and that's been Ty Simpson. And Alabama still found a way to win.
Yeah, I'm still shocked they were able to rip the ball out of his arms. He held it tight, close to his body. I mean, it just – give Alabama credit for making the play on that one, that being the Sellers fumble late. All right, next we're going to 13 Mississippi State. Speaking of snake bitten, my goodness, that the ESPN probability thing had State with a 99% probability to win the game in the fourth quarter, and State found a way to lose it. I mean, credit Texas, punt return, big deal in there, as it was in the Oklahoma game late. But, man, State really threw the ball all over Texas, I think in a way that nobody had done this year, and still couldn't get a win at home in a spot where, frankly, I thought State would win the game.
I think everybody not named Sarkisian thought State was going to win the game. I mean, you and I have seen a bunch of ball. The final 2 minutes game time punt return for a touchdown is not on your normal bingo card on what you expect. I mean, and look, call it growing pains, State fans, because Jeff Levy's done a hell of a job. But you got to be in those positions enough times to then be comfortable in those positions to where you then make enough plays to be in those positions and come out on top. And that's just the experience and the nature of being in a championship contending program. And Mississippi State, hey, they're walking forward. And until we get to about 10, Mississippi State from the double-digit numbers in my power rankings, Mississippi State has to feel the best about its coaches of anybody on this list in the double digits.
Yeah. No, I think so too. All right, let's get to your school, Auburn. What a weird game. Auburn gave up a
90-yard pick six right before that.
Which is part of its personality. It also hit 5 field goals.
Because of Hugh Freeze. Because, I mean, honestly, if you watch the game, and I know our Auburn friends in the chat, that was a 6-play drive that covered 80 yards because they gave the ball to Jeremiah Cobb and ran it down their throat. And then Hugh Freeze went off Phil Mickelson and decided to get too cute by half and threw the ball 50 yards across the field for trying to get an 8-yard gain. And it was that's a play call. And look, if we're going to talk about Auburn, I think the football conversation is if Ashton Daniel is going to give that big of a lift to everybody else on the football team, why the hell has he not played until the Saturday before Halloween?
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you next. What do you do at quarterback? I didn't even realize he was their backup. I thought it was the freshman.
No.
Okay. When did that switch? Or has it been that way?
I think it was coming out of camp, but
okay.
nobody else played.
Well, right. I was going to say they haven't shown any inclination to go away from Jackson Arnold. So do you think there is something replicable for Auburn here that it can take away? I mean, again, Alex McPherson hit 5 field goals. That's not been part of what you do. Is this a little bit of new Auburn or just, beat a team that can't seem to win one itself?
Well, glass half full, and back to OBKWE's comment about Auburn having the best defense in the league. And they're in the team picture. Statistically, Oklahoma is just dominant, even having Ole Miss run up and down the field on them in Norman. But I will say this, and I know you can't do the so-and-so beat so-and-so, so so-and-so is going to beat so-and-so. The transitive property of football does not work. That's an Arkansas team that just put 42 on A&M and 34 in Knoxville, and the offense only scored 17. And one of those was a busted coverage because the pick six was the other score.
Yeah.
And, I mean, look, if Auburn can just get to 20 – is the stat something nuts like Hugh Freeze is 15-3 when his team scores 24 points, which goes back to a reference I've made multiple times that the former Birmingham News columnist Kevin Skarbinski wrote in whatever he's doing now. Somebody forwarded it to me. If your team's not good at what you're supposed to be an expert at, then you're not good. I mean, and Hugh Freeze is supposed to be an offensive guy, and they are offensively putrid.
Yeah, the 2 pick sixes changed the score a good bit. I mean, Auburn's offense was net 19 points when it was on the field, and the defense was net minus 10. So, which I don't know why we don't have some kind of thing that, if your offense is on the field and gives up a pick six, that ought to come off your scoring offense and vice versa. But anyway, the score was funny because of weird plays.
Football fans like me, it would.
It would. That's true.
Like you. But then next thing you know, I'm taking my shoe off and I'm trying to figure out stats. And
I get it, but we call it scoring offense anyway. All right, I'll leave that one alone. Number 11, Florida, kind of by default. I guess we'll see how it goes with Billy Gonzalez at the helm against Georgia this week in Jacksonville.
I actually expect Florida to play really well.
Yeah,
really well. I'm not saying they're going to win, and I don't know who put it in the chat, but it made me laugh. It was actually a money chat. You're going to need to call it up. But I'm not saying Florida's going to win. Chris put in there, Jay about to pick A&M to lose in the bye.
Nice.
Hey, man, hey, spoiler alert, I got y'all one, dude. I got y'all one.
Yeah.
And I have for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Let's take a negative slant. Texas A&M will not win this week. How about that?
No, come on now.
And we'll say you said
that was Chris. Chris, that was Chris, not me.
All right, I'll get us both out of trouble. Number 10, LSU. My goodness. What a weekend it was. It just felt like the wheels came off the second half. there was talk they might wait on Brian Kelly. Boosters are angry with Scott Woodward, I guess, because of all the money they put in the roster and still paying the Ogeron buyout, which I get. But hey, the guy also brought you a 2-time national championship baseball coach. Women's basketball, for people, that's a thing. They're in good shape. Men's basketball is kind of stagnant right now. But I don't think Brian Kelly is a bad coach. Might have been a bad fit, and maybe that's on Scott Woodward. But again, I continue to say what's that?
Might have been a bad fit.
Might. I was being generous, Jay Greeson. It's Monday.
I think you're being facetious.
Yeah, anyway.
Look,
okay, Brian Kelly was a good coach who was a bad fit. Are we all happy now?
Hey, here's the thing. I'm not throwing shade at the AD, because if you know, then you pull the trigger now, because don't let them. This is going to be the Billy Napier conversation. If you let a coach whose back is against the wall rally for 3 weeks, and if you know, and LSU knew, and a whole lot, and hey, you asked me on Sunday night if I had sources, and I said no. I just got a bunch of LSU friends, and the level of angst in the program, everybody knew. Everybody knew. Dude was 34-14. It's not like he was terrible, but I mean, for God's sakes, Hugh's like 15-18, and he's still employed. And go ahead and be. I want the person in the chat right now who had James Franklin and Brian Kelly fired before Hugh Freeze to step forward before. If you had that before the season, step forward, because I want to call you a liar right now.
That is crazy when you really think about it. A guy that was quarterfinals of the college football playoff last year gets fired, and then Freeze. I mean, Freeze felt like the most obvious bet to get fired before the year, but you could see a path for Brian Kelly, and I think that second half did him in. Yeah, tell me your bet, because I've heard LSU has money. LSU does not have money. I probably heard more LSU does not have money than LSU does have money. Where do you stand on that?
I think they all have money. And I think the one thing you can't afford to do, if you're a program where you're trying to be good at everything, but football pays all your bills, you can't afford the malaise that has enveloped Auburn's program currently.
Yeah.
You can't afford the frustration. So, I mean, it's like having a rotten tooth. Pull that mother and be done with it.
Yeah. Nick thinks we don't like each other.
I don't know how that's possible.
We disagree on stuff, but I like Jay a lot.
And I like Chris a lot. Now, there are a lot of people who don't like me. Everybody loves Chris. I mean,
I don't
Chris
know.
is a likable dude.
Well, anyway, Brian Kelly was not very likable too, which didn't help. And by the way, people that I've talked to that have dealt with him, I know people that have dealt with him and like him. So I don't know what the disconnect was with Brian Kelly, with certain people, where it went wrong, but it went wrong. I'm very interested to see what LSU does. By the way, fired an offensive coordinator this morning too, in Joe Sloan, who's very well liked, by the way, but just it didn't work out for their offense. Okay, where are we? We are at Texas at 9. I don't know what to make of Texas.
Here's the crazy thing about Texas, and I mean this. And this is the tier of teams that still have hope. Texas is on the short list of the most disappointing teams in the country, and depending on what happens, could wiggle into the playoffs.
Yeah. No, it's really weird. I mean, Texas hasn't really done a lot, but it won 2 games on the road that it needed to win to keep its season survive. Neither were very pretty. Both were completely different games. One of them, the offense doesn't show up at all. One of them, the defense doesn't show up at all, at least not the pass defense. And here we are wondering, is Arch Manning going to play next week against Vanderbilt? Reportedly a concussion. And if so, how much does that or does that not matter? Because all we've said all year is Arch Manning isn't anything near what he's cracked up to be. Well, guess what? Had the best game statistically of his season against Mississippi State on the road. So I don't. That's why I say I don't know what to think of these guys.
I don't either, and I don't even know if they know what to think of these guys, because we came into this year with monster questions about the offensive line, and those have proven to be unanswerable, at least with whoever's in there. Now, granted, they put up a ton of points in Starkville, and Art played a hell of a lot better before he got concussed. And two of my favorite words in the English language are mustachioed and concussed. So I like the verb version of concussion better, so we'll go with concussed. And I think true or false on a Monday, Steve Sarkisian's coaching in Austin next year.
I was going to ask you about that, because what did you make of the denial of, what was it, a Saturday morning report that he was interested in the Titans job?
I mean, there's going to be a bunch of NFL jobs open. If that's his itch, I mean, look, man, there aren't many better scenarios than coaching the Longhorns. I mean, you've got every option that you could possibly want, need, or ever ask for. But you go from preseason 1 to unranked, and you need a game-time punt return to force overtime to escape Starkville, and you got damn lucky to win in Lexington. I mean, there ain't going to be a whole lot of people. Look, I don't know. But I think this is going to be the craziest and most expensive offseason in SEC football history.
Yeah. No, it's got to be. It's already started. Hey, we'll get to the bottom half of our power rankings in just a minute. But a quick break to tell you about the folks who help make our show possible. One of them is Yearly Company, Nashville-based fine jewelry brand built on tradition, designed for meaning. Each piece is handcrafted from solid 14-karat gold, natural gemstones made to measure for a perfect fit, backed by a lifetime guarantee. Every Yearly Company bangle is custom sized, so knowing your size is the most important first step before ordering. That's where the sizing kit comes in. Code SE16KIT. SC16KIT takes 100% off your sizing kit. Check out. Guys, don't waste your time doing last-minute shopping. Go ahead and get your shopping done now. Folks at the Yearly Company can help you out. Make your wife or your girlfriend, your fiance very happy, and help the show while you are at it. All right, we're also brought to you by our friends at ROKFORM. And let me tell you something. I've dropped my phone with a ROKFORM case many times. It's like it never happened. They make super strong stuff. They make military-grade cases. It is the world's strongest magnetic phone case. Extreme protection, super strong magnets, rock lock secure mounting. Get the vent clip in the case, and thank me for that later. That'll help you out while you're in the car. SEC25 get you 25% off your entire order at rockform.com. All right. My NFL team stinks. My NFL team's hat does not stink. By the way, Steve Sarkisian, be careful what you wish for if you want the Titans job. I'd love to have you here, but boy, they are bad. But I still wear my HOVI hat on weekends because I love it. And you'll love your HOVI hat too once you get it. It'll be your new favorite hat. Look no further than HOVI hats for high-quality headwear with a great fit and unique designs. Bad Beat, BADBEAT, get you 15% off your entire order at HOVIDryGoods.com. Okay, Jay, let's get to the top half of this. Not a lot of variance on Oklahoma in terms of our individual rankings, and the Sooners settle in at number 8 after a weird game with Ole Miss in which the defense kind of went bad for the first time all year.
Well, the defense did struggle, but I think a lot of that's Lane Kiffin. But even in matchups on strength, it is – I think that game is firmly on John Mateer. And I don't know how much the thumb is affecting his accuracy because his accuracy was erratic, but a lot of his decision making was problematic. And I mean, it was pushing everything down the field, which is what Ole Miss was trying to get them to do. Ole Miss's defense is a defense you can drive against. There are not many of those in this top half of the league where you can sustain those drives. But in a lot of instances, Mateer got greedy.
Trivia question. Who's getting more yards of play right now? Oklahoma, Texas, or Auburn?
Per play?
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say Auburn.
Texas. It goes Texas, Oklahoma, Auburn. 5.6, 5.5, 5.1. But the fact that I'm even throwing that out is kind of interesting because the whole thing was, Mateer for the Heisman the first month, and they had played some good defenses too. That's part of it too. I do think that Oklahoma's played better defenses than maybe the other two teams, but it is kind of shocking that we're sitting here where John Mateer was maybe the story of the league for the first month, Jay, and now we're saying, hey, and some of that's thumb injury for sure, but now we're saying, hey, Oklahoma don't know if they can win because of that offense.
And amazingly, to magnify, because until Saturday, Oklahoma couldn't run the football. But Oklahoma had a great game rushing the football.
Yeah, just a really, really odd game. Of course, they'll get a team that has an issue defending this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. That team is to come. Missouri is 7. I think that's a little bit low. I think Missouri and Vanderbilt played one of those games where it was dead even and one team had to win. That was Vanderbilt. But I came away, we talked about the defensive conversation, Jay. I think Missouri may have the best one in the league.
Zion Young's as good as anybody. Zion Young's made himself a hell of a lot of money this season because he went from a guy that a whole lot of folks unfamiliar with the Missouri program look up, and every game, every Saturday, he jumps off the screen.
Yeah, and the Wilson kid does too. High watermark. This is here's your crazy stat of the year. Most yards that Missouri has given up in a game this year, 357 to Auburn.
Yeah, to Auburn.
To Auburn, yeah. 4.4 yards of play. They're giving up fewer than 14 first downs a game. That's their big stat. The most first downs they gave up was 22 to Alabama, 4.3 for play in that one, which is just a really weird stat. I think Missouri's just kind of caught some bad breaks so far.
Well, but speaking of bad breaks.
Yeah, well, I don't think that was a break. That was a sprain, they say. The Prebula injury, apparently.
Every report I read this morning, I mean, they're hopeful he's going to be back for the end of the regular season, but hopeful is the key word there.
Yeah.
And, Chris, you were there. The replays look like that play was dirty as hell.
I don't know, man. It's a goal line stand. You're trying to pull a guy back from the goal line who had momentum. The guy on the ground had help behind him. And I mean, it's first and goal at the 1. I'm not saying it wasn't dirty. I don't know what happened under the pile, but if I'm a defensive lineman, I'm hanging onto a guy's leg for dear life and trying to pull him back. I mean, you can look dirty. I don't know that means it is. I've heard that thrown out a lot.
We can't judge intent.
Right. Well, here's one intent we can judge. You keep a guy out of the end zone.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I stop. Again, I'm not God. I don't know if it was or wasn't. But I think a lot of people jump to a conclusion there that may or may not be fair. But, man, that play looked awful. I'm glad that's all it was. Here's the other conversation, and I hate that it happened that way. Missouri's better quarterback may have been sitting on the bench to start the game because, man, they threw it much better downfield after that.
And they are skilled on the perimeter. I will say this, though, and I think this is pertinent, and I don't know if maybe this can be kind of the focus of our Thursday live conversation. teams 7 and 8 here, Missouri and Oklahoma, they are honestly, I don't know, considering who they've lost to and considering what's in front of them. I've said all season, and I'm now starting to question it, because we are racing to an Atlanta 285 traffic jam of potential 10-2 SEC teams with an unbalanced schedule. That who's going to be left on the outside looking in? I mean, because if there are 4 or 5 or 6 10-2 teams, which is distinctly possible if you look at the schedule grid, and Oklahoma at 10-2, their schedule is more difficult than Missouri or the next team I think we're about to get to.
Yeah, well, hey, and if you're Missouri, it felt like this was, I don't know, an elimination game, because I've said all along, I think we're making snap judgments on what record does or doesn't get you in. I could see a lot of scenarios playing out, but try this one on. Missouri at 10-2, with one of those wins being A&M, and the way that team defends, don't count those guys out. So, anyway.
And here's the other thing, because if there are a half dozen of teams in this league 10-2 or better, what do you then do, Chris, with the 10-3 SEC championship game loser?
It probably depends on who it is. If it's Alabama with the wins it's got, then Alabama's got to be in, I think.
With the wins it's got, and let's be real right now. Let's be real. Look, you guys may like me, you may not like me, but I'm going to tell you, I'm always going to be as honest as I can be. Alabama at 10-3 gets in because they're Ala flipping Bama. And let's pretend like that does not matter. Okay.
Well, it did matter last year.
Well, last year they didn't get to Atlanta.
Right.
And
Alabama's, well, we'll get to them in a minute, but I think the wins are going to be interesting. Missouri, in a 10-2 scenario, I guess best win would be, as I look to my left, would be A&M. I mean, the Oklahoma win, if they got that next to last week, who knows what that means. Arkansas may be playing out the string at home. And then Mississippi State, which can't beat anybody. The Auburn win could have been a nice one, depending on how Auburn finished. I just think there's way, way too much football to be played, because some of these wins that look good today may not tomorrow, and some of these wins that look okay today may be great wins by the time we get to the end of Thanksgiving weekend. So, okay, let's go to Tennessee at 6, which is kind of the level where most of us settle in. It's the same story for Tennessee every week. Feels like the offense can score on just about anybody, but the defense just cannot get stops. The Vols are running just an absurd number of plays every game. That number now up to 78 offensive snaps a game, 75 on defense. I mean, the weird thing about the defense is Tennessee may lead the conference in defensive scores. If they don't, they're close. I think South Carolina's in that conversation too. But it just feels like this has become about the most predictable team in the league week to week, where predictability has been tough to come by when we look at some of these teams.
Hey, you know what else is predictably strong, even if it was unpredictably accounted for before the year? Joey Aguilar leads the SEC in passing yards, in passer rating, in average yards per pass, and he's in the top 5 in completion percentage. Look, Ty Simpson's got a glorious touchdown interception rate, and Ty Simpson and Marcel Reed on FanDuel are now among the top 4 favorites for the Heisman. Joey Aguilar is balling.
How's this for consistency? Yards per play by game from week 1 to now: 7.3, 7.2, 7.1, 7.0, 6.5, 7.5, 5.3. That was at Alabama, and 8.5. Yeah, but can you get stops? And I know that Tim Banks has gotten some heat at Tennessee. That is absurd. What are you guys doing? Tim Banks has been tremendous until he lost his starting corners, and guess what? You lose a first-round edge guy, and then you lose 2 starting corners to injury. In this league, anybody can get anybody can be in for a tough run at that spot. I just think moving on from Tim Banks, I bet you if you do that, there's 15 other head coaches in the SEC going, thank you for doing that, because we didn't want to face it.
Well, another part of it is just schematic. I mean, Tennessee's going to run that many plays.
Right.
I mean, you're going to if you're in a reload year, a remodel year, and you then have those injuries, your depth is going to take a hit, and your defense is going to be on the field a ton if Josh Heupel's your head coach and play caller. I mean,
yeah.
Look, and to go back to the schematic questions, a big part of this is this defense tries for big plays. And when you are scheming for big plays, whether that's turnovers, whether that's pressure, you are then susceptible to big plays.
Yeah. How many they've had at least 4 defensive touchdowns this year? They had 2 against State. They had 1 Saturday, and I feel like there was another one in there between. Maybe Syracuse. That wouldn't be between, but it might be more than that. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great point there. All right, we'll move to number 5. That is Vanderbilt, which got beat at its own game, but beat Missouri because the defense showed up at key times. And, oh, by the way, we said special teams, look out for that one. Vanderbilt's kicker hit a field goal. Missouri's kicker hit 1 of 2, and the one he missed was a chip shot that hit the upright. Sometimes that's your difference in these games.
I am unbelievably impressed with everything Vanderbilt has offered. And I think this is the biggest compliment I can pay Clark Lee to what he's building on the West Side. They're winning right now and control their destiny and are top 10 in the country. And they're doing it, and Diego Pavia is playing average football.
Yeah, I mean,
he's an emotional powder keg. He's the guy that leads them on the field. He is the guy they all lean on for every spark. But in terms of production, he's mad. And now he's a gamer, and he's gutsy as hell, and every team would want him taking snaps. But this Diego for the Heisman conversation, that's a bit of a reach.
I don't know, man.
It's not the MVP award. It's the best player in college football. Now, they don't vote it that way.
Look, I don't think he'll get it. The stat sheet was not kind to him Saturday, but he was not bad. He had one turnover that was a tip pass. He made a big play late in the game to get the winning touchdown. I think more of it had to do with Missouri's defense, but I will say, hey, he didn't do much the second half of the Alabama game, had 2 big turnovers. I think probably the Alabama game and the Missouri stat line, I'm not going to say they killed his Heisman chances. I think they put a big dent in it. But to me, your quarterback, you want a guy who can make winning plays when it matters. And he's still done that.
He has. And look, if the Downtown Athletic Club is not going to change the name to the best player or the best story on a very good or better college football team, because it's been this way for years. I mean, years. Yeah. That Ndamukong Suh didn't win the Heisman was a travesty.
Yes, agreed.
But to say Diego Pavia is the best player in college football is, I don't know.
No, I don't think he'd get the Heisman right now, but I think he's still in the conversation. I don't think anybody's running away with this award. I mean, maybe it's Fernando Mendoza's at the end. I don't know that Indiana's played defenses like you're going to see in the SEC. I mean, I think Ty Simpson probably is still your SEC player of the year. If I had a vote, that's probably your guy. Gunnar Stockton's making a move. Look, man, just nobody separated themselves from the pack. Let's see what happens the last few weeks as teams need to win games and what quarterbacks make plays. Because let's also be honest, too. Vanderbilt wasn't doing anything like this until he got there. Not even close.
No, but,
yeah.
I mean, that's just not what my definition of what the Heisman is.
No, I mean, but it's not. But tell me who's your guy right now if you have to make a pick.
I love Fernando Mendoza. I think Julian Sayin is doing work in Columbus. I think Ty Simpson and what he's done has been unbelievably impressive. And until the last 2 weeks, I would have been on board with voting for Ahmad Hardy. But he's run into, that's my dude right there. Haynes King
Hardy
is winning football games almost single-handedly at Georgia Tech. And they're going to be unbeaten when Georgia comes to Atlanta Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, and Haynes King has been great. He has, but who have they played? Best team they played was what, at Duke? Nowhere close to the polls.
But strength of schedule is not a metric for the Heisman.
So we give Haynes King a pass for running up big numbers against Wake Forest and Syracuse and Temple, but we don't give Diego Pavia one for playing Missouri and Alabama and some of those defenses. Well, I just disagree with you on that one.
Then are we not allowing for whose team's better around him, Diego's or Haynes King? I mean, if you're going to start bringing in outside factors of strength of schedule, then what is the talent level around these dudes? And I mean,
I'll give you this. I've not watched Georgia Tech play a lot this year, so you might be right. I think this discussion right now is pointless because so many of the big games are coming. You got conference championship games coming. Although, do they do the Heisman before that? No, they don't. They do that after the.
They do it. They do it. Isn't it the Saturday? Isn't it always the Saturday night of the Army-Navy game?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and I just think that there's too much work to be done. I mean, let me see how Haynes King handles Georgia. Let me see how he handles an ACC title game. I just think some of these teams, because of the way the schedules have fallen, there's a very disparate schedule strength between some of these teams. And I just, to me, it's pointless until you see, okay, how do these guys handle games that are playoff caliber games? And just a lot of those are to be played. I don't think Diego Pavia is going to win it. I don't think I would vote for him today. I just don't disqualify him for that either because he didn't play badly. I think it had a lot to do with Missouri, and I don't think he got a lot of help from his receivers. But I may be wrong. Anyway, let's move on to number 4, Ole Miss. Really, really impressive win for the Rebels. I did not think Ole Miss would go into Norman and have the better defensive performance. That's one thing I didn't see coming.
With the possible exception of Jimmy Sexton, the super agent for every coach everywhere who is going to need to have multiple cell phones charging all at the same time because of the calls blowing up his phone with the carousel spinning at such a high rate. Nobody had a better weekend than Lane Kiffin. Look,
no doubt.
I mean, he's now the front runner at 2 other jobs, which means whatever happens, he's going to get a multi-million-dollar raise to either leave or stay. And somebody put this in the chat earlier. when we were talking about Oklahoma making bad decisions against that defense, this is a credit to coaching, because so often, unless you're an elite recruiter, even Saban did it, and he was the greatest recruiter of all time. Saban would go get guys to fit his system, especially defensively, but he was willing to adapt and adjust as things needed to happen. When his quarterbacks became more mobile, he moved on from the McCarrons and McElroys into the Hurts and the Tagovailoas and those guys. Last year, Ole Miss's defense was a complete 180 of what this year's Ole Miss defense is. Last year, it was the Rebel Black Bears, pressure, because they had a unbelievable, relentless defensive front. This year, they're now getting comfortable making you go 7, 8, 9, 10 plays down the field. And it is a visor tip on realizing what your kids can do and putting them in the best position possible to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy that team last year did not make the playoffs, and this team is barring a disaster heading there.
Yes. And last year's team had an assortment of front seven NFL dudes and a first-round QB1, and now they're doing it with Band-Aids, Gorilla Glue, and a Ferris State transfer.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, shout out to Trinidad Chambliss. You know, after some time where people were questioning, can the dude throw the ball down the field? They go and do that.
And the Lacey kid is good now. I mean,
yes,
Lacey is good.
Yeah, and I was listening to Neil McCready and those guys. They're buddies of mine. Their post-game show, they gave him a big shout-out for the pass blocking, which you really need to have when you're playing Oklahoma, of course. So, number 3, Georgia, which stays here by default after not playing.
Everybody, look, man. Saban before him and Kirby now, this model of consistency. Some of our cousins came and stayed with us this weekend, and I looked at them, and they're both Georgia graduates. And I said, you know what I really appreciate? I know you guys are about to do this. The peace that comes with the bye weekend. And they both looked at me and went, no, bye weekends are boring. And I said, well, it's because you're a Georgia fan and you expect to win every week. And as an Auburn fan, the tension-free bye Saturday it's nirvana. I mean, it is so restful. And that's what Kirby's built. And that's what is, look, there are a lot of factors that are causing the carousel in this league. Because I asked in my morning column today, how many openings will there be? We already have 3. I think 4 is a dunk. I think 5 is possible. And that's not even talking about guys leaving for other jobs. Everybody's chasing what Kirby has built. I don't know if it can be replicated, but everybody's chasing it.
All right, Georgia has got Florida and Jacksonville, at Mississippi State, Texas and Athens, Charlotte, which is awful in Athens, and Georgia Tech in Mercedes-Benz Dome. Biggest threat to beat Georgia would be who?
Tech.
I could argue Tech. I could argue, I don't know that I'd argue Texas and Athens.
No.
Florida game Saturday intrigues me just because of the spot.
No, the spot, new coach, a talented roster. But look, in a million years, I didn't expect to say this before the season because I was super high on this kid. But DJ Lagway ain't no Haynes King. Arch Manning ain't no Haynes King. I mean, watch the film. And I don't give a damn if he's doing it against Hickson High School here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Haynes King makes every big play they need. And when he's got the football in his hands, he delivers a level of confidence that few players I can remember at that height.
Okay, Georgia's got one loss. You heard the remaining schedule. Most likely into regular season record for Georgia would be what?
I'm going to go 10-2, but 11-1 would not surprise me because they're playing better. And in some ways, if you're Georgia, if you do find a way to stub your toe, you want to be 10-2 and not in Atlanta.
Yeah,
because
no,
then
I'm with you.
And that's going to be a thing now. And I haven't heard a lot of people discuss it, but that's going to be a real thing.
Yeah, I haven't begun to unpack the tiebreakers for the. I think it's pointless because it depends on so many things. But that's going to be a fun Saturday, I think, in the league office. After the dust settles Thanksgiving weekend.
When do the rankings get released, Chris? Is that this week or next?
I think it's next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we going to do something live even at night for that?
I think we will.
Okay. I'm in.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a blast. Number 2, Alabama, which means we've had a change at 1. Hey, not the way you wanted it to be 1 if you're Alabama, but you want it. And in a landscape where you see something crazy just about every Saturday. I guess this is the first time we didn't really see anything completely crazy in a while. Alabama got maybe South Carolina's best shot and still came out with a win.
Was it a last-ditch effort from South Carolina? Are they about to pack tents? I don't know. But I said it last week, and I'll say it again here when we get to number 1. But finding ways to win outside of your comfort zone is a bona fide strength for your football team and for your coaching staff.
Yeah, they've now got to beat Ole Miss on the road, A&M on the road, Coastal Carolina, and Clemson. Get 3 of those 4, and you get bowl eligible. So that's your job, Shane Beamer. All right, number 1, Texas A&M. I think it was unanimous. We might have had one Alabama. I'll check it. But, hey, easy one for me, one of the easier decisions on my ballot. It was unanimous now that I look at it. Texas A&M, man, they just find a way. They've got a little bit of everything. They got a pass rush. They got passing offense. They got rushing offense, special teams. The speed to me, I think, is just the thing that really stands out. Those 2 wideouts, Concepcion and Craver, and then you throw in what Marcel Reed can do. I think if you're a defensive coordinator facing them right now, you're just having nightmares.
They are unbelievably difficult to stop. I mean, everything you just said is completely factual. And I don't know. Look, we've had a kind of a consistent theme through this whole thing, and there are a lot of really good defenses in this conference. But the fact that Auburn held them to 16 is going to age like a fine wine, my friend.
Yeah. Brett makes a good point. Kane Womack deserves a lot of credit. And that's another one of those on Alabama. We're back to that one. I'm a little out of order here. Yeah, I mean, and they're doing it without Moss, too, who was their bell cow coming into the year.
And look, man, I give a lot of flowers to Josh Heupel because of what he inherited and how quickly he redirected the Big Orange Battleship. The same can be said for Mike Elko. When you consider when Jimbo was fired, that was a complete overhaul of that program.
Yeah.
I mean, the portal activity in College Station made like an hour-long special of Star Trek look like nobody went to see Scotty to get beamed up. I mean, everybody was disappearing. And,
yeah.
I mean, kudos to him. They found a dude.
Yeah, year 2 sometimes is the year it's clicked. under a head coach. That's certainly been the case for our number 1 and number 2. All right, that's the end of the power rankings, Jay. Any parting thoughts before we go? I know we got a lot of stuff to cover. We got predictions. Watching the coaching carousel is going to be super interesting. I think this is going to be the most interesting year of SEC football we've ever seen by the time it's done.
Oh, my. Chat just turned.
What happened? Oh, all the Fire DeBoer guys.
No, next one down. Don't put it on the screen.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The chat just turned. Holy cow! Okay,
I think we'll.
I don't recall what my final thoughts were. I just got. Holy cow!
Yeah, that one's not welcome here. It got deleted. So
good.
Anyway,
good on you. I don't have deleting powers. They don't trust me with the button.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Wow.
It took me a minute. Took me a minute to find it.
Well, good. Because nobody in a million years would have thought that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get back to football. And everybody's welcome in the chat. Everybody's welcome in football. Look, man, on a quick tangent on that idiocy, and if you saw it, you know what I'm about to say. One, don't do that here. And two, one of the great things about sports in general is I don't care if you're polka dotted. I don't care if you're purple like Barney. If you can play and you can help us win, then by God, I love you like a brother. And that is it's one of the true last meritocracies we have in all of this society that is going off the rails in so many different ways. So my final thought is, God bless sports, man. God bless us.
Yeah. Sports unite us. That's what we're here for. Yeah. Here tonight, you guys, too. Appreciate a lot of the regular faces in the chat. Holly, one of our regulars here. Brett, one of our regulars. Salty Soda, here a lot lately. Rusty Richardson, one of our originals from back in the day. And we used to get jokes about being an Arkansas basketball channel because that's kind of how it started. When we got going on YouTube, they were rocking in basketball, and we had a lot of them.
Rusty's been here so long. When he first started, he was posting as Iron Richardson. Now he's just Rusty Richardson. And
he did not join the Navy. Some of you will get that. All right, we're done here. We'll do power rank. Excuse me, these are power rankings. It's been quite a Monday. I might be a little short on sleep. Anyway, we power on to predictions. Those are coming today. We got basketball coming tomorrow. We got the playoff predictions coming Wednesday. And then when we get to the weekend, we'll come back and recap everything again. Cannot wait for that. It feels like the days between football Saturdays just cannot get here quickly enough. And we're here to help you keep the time or kill the time between now and then. All right. For Jay Greeson, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you. Have a great week. You've been watching Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel.